Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I was part of the first cohort of the BSc Medical Biosciences or BMB course at Imperial College London, and I graduated this summer in 2020. If you're interested in applying to this course, or if you've recently started studying at Imperial, keep watching this because I'll be covering what this course is about, my experience, and some of my tips and takeaways. In the BMB course, you will explore the science underpinning human health with a focus on the healthcare challenges in the 21st century. It's a new course compared to the previous biomedical science degree. Now, I don't know how much difference there is in terms of the content between these two courses, but I can tell you that BMB has a very unconventional teaching style and structure. First, BMB uses flipped learning, where we don't have traditional lectures. Instead, before each lecture, which we call a face-to-face session, there is an e-module that we have to read in advance, so essentially it's like a pre-reading lesson. During the face-to-face, we would then do a small quiz to test our knowledge, and then do some application exercises or dive deeper into the topics introduced in the e-modules. The first 2 years cover topics in fundamental human biology and the molecular basis of human disease. You'll get to do a bunch of top modules, which I don't want to go into too much details because you can read all about that on the website, and I'll link this in the description. At the end of year 1 and 2, you'll sit your final exams, but throughout the year you'll also get to do in-course assessments, which roughly has the same weighting as the exams. The BMB course also has a focus on research, so we have a program called LabPod. In both year 1 and 2, you'll get to do a research project that spans term 1 and 2. You'll be given a certain topic, and in groups, you'll devise your own hypotheses, plan your experiments, and execute the research to test your hypotheses. This is quite a unique feature of BMB because usually biomedical science programs at other universities only offer a research project as a final year project that lasts for a few months, whereas the BMB course allows you to have something close to a true research environment since year 1. At the end of LabPod, you'll also write up your work in the style of a peer-reviewed paper and get to present your findings in a poster. Now, year 3 is where it gets interesting. You can choose 3 specialist modules, each of which examines a global health problem. Again, you can read about these modules at your own time. Apart from this, you'll also have to choose one of the 3 pathways, doing a research project, work placement, or a literature review. This is what I think is unique about the course as well, because it doesn't just train you for an academic route, and if you want to try something different, you have the opportunity to do a work placement. Now, if you choose either the placement or the dissertation route, you'll also have to do 2 more modules on science communication and creative reflection. Also, what's different about year 3 is that there is no exam at all. You only need to do in-course assessments, and a big chunk of your year 3 mark depends on your research project, placement project, or dissertation. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into the truths about the course. First, for the flipped learning aspect. Personally, I loved the e-modules because it allowed me to have organized notes as opposed to conventional lectures where often you might miss out key points or sometimes the slides don't really have a lot of details. However, given that I was the first cohort and everything was new, I do feel that the face-to-face sessions in year 1 were a bit inefficient. Having said that, I think based on our feedback, this was definitely improved in year 2, and I would imagine things would be different now as well. Secondly, for the LabPod program, you will get to spend a whole day in lab every week for 2 terms in LabPod. It's great for you to get hands-on experience from formulating a hypothesis, planning experiments, and then doing the experiments. The truth is that in research, often things can go wrong, but it's all about having the resilience to troubleshoot and adapt your plan. So you'll definitely get a feel of whether research is for you, and this is great because you can make an informed decision about where you want to go in the future. Even if you don't enjoy it, I think it's still a great experience and at least it helps you rule out an option. Thirdly, the work placement. I wanted to try something different from research, so I chose the work placement stream. I worked in a consulting company which provides strategic advices for pharmaceutical and diagnostic companies. For me, it was a valuable experience that allowed me to see how my knowledge in biomedical science can be implemented in aspects other than academia. Plus, it's a good thing to add to your CV for sure. Apart from just gaining the experience though, at the end of the day, it still contributes to your final grade, so we had to do an essay, a report, and a presentation based on our project. Actually, this work placement takes up 50% of my Year 3 grade, and my Year 3 makes up 75% of my whole degree, so you can imagine that it is quite heavily weighted. The truth is, I had a supervisor from the company who guided me through my project, but I feel that I would have benefited a lot more if I also had a supervisor from Imperial. The reason for that is, for the assessments, my supervisor ran through them and thought they were excellent, but it turned out that the markers at Imperial have a different viewpoint, which is okay, but it would have been so nice to have some guidance from Imperial. Moving on to the tips and takeaways. First, how you should read the e-modules and take notes. I did perform quite well, particularly in my exams and in-course assessments, which got me onto the Dean's List in Year 1 and 2, meaning I was in the top 10% of the cohort. So hopefully, these tips will be helpful for you as well. First thing first, make sure you read the e-modules on time. You will find that your timetable will look very empty, but don't forget that it's supposed to be e-module learning time. You're not going to benefit from the face-to-face at all if you haven't learned the e-module properly, so it'll just be a waste of time. Plus, trust me, the e-modules will pile up and it will be a disaster if you have to catch up on tons of e-modules before your exams. Also, don't just read through them, but make notes as you go along. I know this takes more time, but not only does this help you absorb the knowledge better, more importantly, it's going to help you a lot in your revision. When it comes to around Easter time before the final exam season, all you have to do is print your notes out and study them. Whereas if you don't have your notes, you'll find yourself struggling because you'll have to go back to each of the e-modules to learn them. Speaking of note-taking, some people prefer handwriting them as it helps with your memory retention. Personally, I think there is way too much content to be writing them out, so I would recommend electronic notes like typing them out. You might also find that it's much faster to just copy and paste the text onto your notes, which is okay, but make sure when you do that, you would crop out unnecessary words in the sentence and make them into bullet points so that your notes only contain the essence of what you want to memorize in your brain. If you ask me what apps I would recommend, I personally found it useful to just use the Word document for each e-module. The reason for that is because I can mark sections as headings at different levels in Word, and then if I click onto the References tab, Word can generate a table of contents automatically. So by one click, I can have an overview of what I need to revise for each e-module. I did switch to OneNote for a bit in Year 2, but I found that it really messed up with my revision because it's not friendly for being printed out. It's just a personal thing though, because I like to have my notes printed so I don't have to stare at the screen when I revise. You might find that something else works better for you, which is totally fine. Moving on to exams and in-course assessments. It's a bit of a cliche, but I have to stress that you have to start early. I think for me, I had about a month and a half prior to the finals where I spent most of my time revising on campus. As for the in-course assessments, I would always try to set myself another deadline to finish them a week before the actual deadline. This is really helpful because for that final week, you'll be surprised at how looking at it from a fresh pair of eyes will allow you to refine your work, and it's very unlikely that you can do this if you're a deadline fighter. Also, if in doubt, just ask the module leads. For example, there was an assessment where we needed to choose a paper to work on, and I wasn't sure whether the one I found was a good choice. So I literally just emailed the module lead who couldn't answer my question directly, but I definitely sent some hints from him. So honestly, you'll be surprised that more often than not, they're very happy to help. Moving on to the lab pod program. Personally, I didn't do that well in labs, especially in Year 1 where I often didn't really know what was going on. But in hindsight, I think I would have benefited more from lab pod by doing more literature search. You want to make sure that you understand why you're doing certain experiments. Don't forget to look back at the bigger picture as well and think about how things fit into your main hypothesis. The other thing is, do not just rely on your teammates, which I certainly did in year 1 and I'm not proud of that. So sorry teammates if you're watching this video. And the reason for that is, first, it's not a nice thing to do, and second, it does not help you in any way, and you will still have to write up your research individually at the end. One last thing about labs, there'll definitely be times where you're not sure of what to do. If in doubt, ask the teaching fellow. In year 1, I was so shy and afraid to ask things, but in year 2, it definitely helped a lot when I actively reached out and asked questions. Finally, how to pick a stream for your final year. Towards the end of year 2, you'll need to decide on which pathway you're going to pick for your final year. My advice would be, don't go for a certain pathway just because many people are doing it or that it seems like the right thing to do. Everyone has different interests and your career paths certainly don't have to look the same. So definitely choose a pathway that you genuinely feel you would benefit from. Finally, I'll end this video by concluding my experience as a BNB graduate. Being the first cohort was challenging at times, but overall I would recommend this course to anyone interested in learning about the science behind diseases, therapies, as well as how we can solve healthcare challenges using new approaches. I think the course definitely builds an excellent basis if you want to pursue further studies, and it also opens doors for you to go into different routes as well, like research, the pharmaceutical industry, biotechs, consulting, etc. So I hope this video has been useful for you, and comment below to let me know your thoughts as well. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to my channel.